Hi, this is Chris Howard. And my dear friend and martial arts instructor, Rorion Gracie, said something that really made an impact on me. He said, before you get to the black belt level, you've got to tap out 10,000 times. Now, tapping out means giving up. And most people wouldn't associate success, the black belt, with tapping out and giving up. But that's the only way to get it, because you've got to discover all the ways not to succeed before you can eventually create the level of success that you want. Now, it's the same thing that causes somebody to rise to the greatest level in martial arts that would cause somebody to rise to the greatest level within their business or life. And we have to learn to accept and embrace this whole concept of failure. To accept and embrace the concept of failing forward. No matter who you look at on a global scale, in terms of the richest people in the world, they're all people who have had many, many failures. But it's not whether you fall down or not that makes a difference. It's how quickly you get back up. Look at, for example, Richard Branson in the history of the Virgin companies. First, he launched Student Magazine, and that wasn't doing so well financially. They were doing all right, but they weren't really making a profit. So he said, what can we do about this? How can we make this thing work? And it was technically a failure from a profit perspective, and so they looked at it and said, why don't we launch a little mail order record business? And they decided to call it Virgin Records. And they launched it through the magazine, and that did a little better. But then they had a postal strike in London. And so here they're faced with another problem, another failure, because all of a sudden the cash flow dried up completely. And they said, what are we going to do here? How can we fix this problem? How can we make this situation even better as a result of these circumstances? Now, how can you turn this challenge into something to create something greater for us? And it was at that point that they opened up storefronts. They opened up live stores. Once again, they found it wasn't so profitable. So he said the real money was in producing. So at 21 years old, he went out to Coutts Bank and took a loan for the Manor, which became the first recording studio, and the rest is history. I mean, that's where, of course, he became a millionaire with his first hit, Tubular Bells. But having said that, it's not to say that there weren't any more challenges or failures along the way. You know, he ended up having to sell his favorite possession, his favorite asset, which was the recording business, in order to keep the airline alive later when he was in the famous battles with British Airways, which was known as the Dirty Tricks campaign. And I asked him at one point, I said, wasn't that a challenge for you? I mean, you loved Virgin Records so much. And he said, it was the hardest thing that I ever did in my life. I looked at him, I said, but in the long run, it ended up being one of the best things you ever did, too. And he said, yeah. He said, that's what made me a billionaire. So remember, you've got to tap out 10,000 times before you get a black belt in business and in life.